Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm for Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do have in here is a quick test on Tekken 8's demo. So I decided to take my GTX 1650 Super for a spin on this demo version of the game and try to understand what performance and what the best settings or presets for you to use inside this game. So for this demo version I decided to use these informants and the same characters, the Nina and Jin. Alright, so bottom of the line I use the same characters for all my tests, but obviously the combats unfolded in different ways and different camera positions, so yeah, everything was a little bit random, but still it was enough to understand how the game actually plays. So let's start with 1080p mode settings with FSR2 on its quality mode. So this is a fighting game using Unreal. We have seen this in the past with Street Fighter and many other games, other fighting games. All of them end up being locked to 60 frames per second, and you can't really unlock that frame rate. And even if you do, the game will just don't behave as it should. Same goes if the frame rate drops under 60, the game just plays at a slow motion, which is, well, not playable because the game doesn't support frame skipping. So let's start with actually the results. So first of all, like I said, I'm testing 1080p low settings with FSR2 on its quality mode like the usual, and I'm getting 60 frames per second. No issues whatsoever. GPU usage, it is around 57 to 60%, sometimes slightly higher, but we don't see the graphic card struggle, not even close. Not struggling, not even close to reach those 60 frames per second, so easy to run, no issues whatsoever. Then my next move it was to try 1080p with obviously median settings. I decided to also use as usual FSR2 on its quality mode, and I started to notice something weird. So textures didn't really mold in. So texture quality on the characters were okay, but if you look at the floor, there are absolutely no textures in there. So something is wrong, right? Well, that's 4 gigabytes VRAM for you. If you have a 4 gigabyte graphic card, don't even try to use textures higher than both settings, or we will have this issue where textures just simply do not load. This is nothing new, we have seen this in other games, in other Unreal Engine games, which when you don't have enough VRAM, that happens. So I decided to go with the same exact settings, but this time I decided to reduce textures to low, and voila! Ground textures are back. Look how better it is. Yeah, just keep those textures on low if you have 4 gigabytes of VRAM. And as you can see, median settings, FSR2 quality, textures on low. GPU usage it is slightly higher than the low settings, like 10%, something like that. So we are having like 60 to 70 something percent. So the GPU is very comfortable running these at 60 frames per second, no issues whatsoever. So it is just absolutely fine. So probably let's move on to the eye settings. So right now 1080p, high settings, FSR2 on its quality mode, textures on low because of that issue with the textures. And look at this, we are having again 60 frames per second in here. No issues whatsoever with the textures, everything seems to be working properly. GPU usage it is a tad higher, of course, but as you can see we are having like 70% GPU usage, sometimes around 80%, so no issues. Game's looking good. Alright, RAM usage here is around 10 gigabytes, so make sure you have 16 gigabytes to play the game. Probably 8 gigabytes it is enough, but clearly 16 gigs of RAM will be probably much more useful for you. Now it's time to try the game without FSR. Now 1080p high settings, I will be using TSR with resolution scaling to 100%, which is, well, basically native resolution, and I'm already seeing issues in here. So as you can see, we don't have any issues with the textures. Well, we have seen a texture molding in, but that's nothing special. But my main issue, it is really the frame rate. Frame rate, it is lower than 60 frames per second. you can already notice that the game it is running slower than the usual. So 45 frames per second, everything it is running in slow motion. This is absolutely nope. Don't play any fighting game that doesn't support frame skipping like this. Alright, so it's time to move on probably to 1440p low settings. Let's see how it runs. So 1440p low settings, FSR 2 on its balanced mode. Alright, not quality. Usually when I do put the game at 1440p, the low settings I decide to go with balanced instead. And as you can see, 60 frames per second. Doesn't seem to have any issues with the textures so far, and GPU usage it is around 74%, 77, so it might reach 80% or something, but everything seems to be playing quite well, as you can see. Alright, so it is low settings though, but yeah, it is playable, no issues whatsoever. So I think it's time to move on to 1440p median settings. Here we go, 1440p, median settings, FSR2 on its quality mode, median, low textures, of course, because we don't want to run with the textures issues. And, well, GPU usage it is very high, already with 95%. These might have some drops here and there, probably. So let's see, it is 90%. It is really on the edge. But as you can see, it is actually managing to run at 60. So that's surprising. I'm just trying to see if there is any issues. We have seen 98%, so it's really on the limit. There might be some frame drops here and there in special attacks, or probably some more demanding environments that we might get. But so far everything it is working, although the police car texture back there is already suffering some issues. So probably we are just pushing too much already. Alright, the phone booth texture is a little bit out of its place. Alright, it got back up. But yeah, it does run. Oh my god, here we go. The night moment of the map, it is running at 50, 49. So it's running worse. Right, and it isn't really managing to keep up to 60 frames per second. So, in my opinion, 1440p median settings with FSR2 on its quality mode, it is a nope. You can try to probably to use lower values of FSR2 like FSR2 Balanced to try to recover these performance loss, but still I do think that GPU usage it is really on the edge to keep up with 60. So I would probably play with low settings or a mix between median and low if I had a 1440p screen, or just use lower values of FSR2. So now it's time to 4K. Let's see if this actually manages. So 4K, low settings, FSR2 and its Ultra Performance mode. We can't go lower than this. And here we are. Oh no, texture issues. Texture issues. Textures are not loading. Oh no. It's starting to load. Oh, and they loaded. They just took a lot of time to load. This might not be great. It might not be good, I mean. Performance-wise, it is holding up. GPU usage it is around 90%, 93. It's a little bit on the edge. Alright. So I'm curious about the nighttime to see how it runs. So let's wait a little bit for the nighttime and see if performance it is enough to have those 60 frames per second during that nighttime. But for that I need to beat this girl at the moment. Alright, let's hold it a little bit more and see how it goes. Place your bets, guys. Round 3. Oh, it actually holds up. So seems like the nighttime with the low settings doesn't really have too much of an impact. But yeah, it seems playable at 4K low settings with FSR2 on its Ultra Performance. But I'm a little bit concerned about the texture issues since it took a lot to load. I'm not really sure if it will hold up in some other levels. So I think that's all that I want to talk about Tekken 8 on the GTX 1650 Super. Hope you enjoyed the video and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.